Hey, so this is my third video today. The New York Giants have just signed Ifeadi Odenigbo, a defensive end. He was with the Minnesota Vikings the past 2 seasons, 10.5 sacks over the course of those 2 years. But what impresses me more are the amount of pressures. 26 quarterback pressures last year. The year before that, 18. 15 quarterback hits last year. 13 the year before. Played 65% of snaps last year for Minnesota. 34% the year prior. So in 34% of snaps back in 2019, 13 quarterback hits, 18 quarterback pressures is pretty good. And I believe he had 7.5 sacks that season as well. But it's kind of another Kyler Fackrell kind of move, something the Giants did last year. They signed a guy like Fackrell on a 1-year deal, situational pass rusher. He started to get more snaps after Zimenez and Carter got hurt and they traded Golden, so he had to step up into a bigger role. But for the most part, this is kind of what Dave Gettleman does every offseason. Even before that, signing Marcus Golden, kind of taking a flyer on a pass rusher on a 1-year deal. So Dave Gettleman is back at it, signing a pass rusher, kind of a low-risk, high-reward type of thing. I mean, $2.5 million for a player who situationally can get after the passer. Definitely rush the passer pretty well. And this is something I talked about last offseason. I did a video, I think one of my first videos that you'll find on my YouTube page. Dave Gettleman is building the Giants' defense very much like a baseball team, a modern-day baseball team, where the signings that he's making, he's not going all out and giving a 5-year, $120 million deal to like a Khalil Mack kind of player where you're like, all right, you expect that guy to be one of the best players in the NFL. But he's giving like 3-year deals to guys who analytically check out pretty well. Pretty good players. When the signing is made, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, nice signing, I guess, maybe we'll see. And then they turn out to be really good players. We saw that with Blake Martinez, saw that with James Bradbury. If you looked at the analytics, you know, those guys were pretty good players before they got to the Giants. They were. Martinez struggled a little bit in coverage, but for the most part, pretty good player in terms of run stops and just kind of being a traditional, like, middle linebacker, like an old-school middle linebacker. Bradbury analytically was very good, too. So those signings made sense. Now you look at the Leonard Williams contract extension. The trade to get Leonard Williams, a lot of people didn't like it, but if you looked at the advanced metrics, the guy's a good football player. Gets after the passer. He gets after the passer and he stops the run really well. And maybe the sack totals weren't huge, but obviously that changed this past season when he had 11.5. But aside from the sacks, you look at the pressures, over 40. Look at the quarterback hits, 30. So my point is, Gettleman is putting pieces together, guys that you don't expect to be these elite level players, but they're at least above average. They're good players. And again, they may not be Khalil Mack kind of players or like a Von Miller in his prime or something like that where they just completely take over football games, but they're good. And you keep piecing a good player and a good player and a good player, and all of a sudden you have something pretty damn great. So that's what the Giants are doing with their defense. They're just piecing together good players, players that are under the radar, players that a lot of other teams are undervaluing. And you look at their defense last year, they were top 10 in terms of expected points added, EPA, as a defense as a whole, and then 14th against the pass after being 27th the year before. So they dramatically improved in that area as well. That's kind of how the Giants are piecing this together, bringing in a lot of interesting pieces, underrated pieces, and Ifeadi Odenigbo seems to be the next piece.